Hey guys, Cody here. I just wanted to hop on and talk to you guys about something that's been happening with the podcast recently. I've been noticing a lot of small blips, coughs, pauses, things of that nature that usually we leave in, but we're going to start changing it up with our editing. We're going to start cleaning it up. We're going to start dissecting into it a bit deeper. But right now, simply, we just don't have the availability to do so before this episode is released. That's why it was a day late. But that is why I came on here to talk to you guys about it now. This is something that will change from here on out, so please bear with us. We are obviously going through a big change, so things will be a little bit different. Things will sound different. Things are going to be simply just different. But this episode is fucking awesome. I really hope you guys enjoy. And now for the episode.
Hey, welcome back to the Blue Collar Off-Road Podcast, episode 73. So we got another local guy on today, and a lot of you probably know him if you are from New England. He's pretty hard to miss. He drives a massive blue JK on 43s. Do you still drive it on the street, or is it? Yeah, you do, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get trailered to and from the trails.
Respectable.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So
Your
if you didn't already guess,
best friend.
yeah, if you didn't already guess, it's Dave Linehan. He's a local guy. You're part of Rockaholics. You've been in the scene for, as far as I know, as long as I've been around. I feel like I've known your Jeep. So it's actually, I don't know if I've ever picked your brain about how you got into the sport in general and into Jeeps, whether it was, I guess we'll start with, has Sully always been your Jeep, or have you had other Jeeps prior to this one?
You know Graham's excited when he completely forgets to introduce me, Luke, and Richie. Just from hi, we're here too, in case anybody forgot about us,
Yeah.
We're just,
nobody cares about you.
We're just the four hobos that make this thing run.
Well, you guys are here. Graham and I are our own little private chat room.
Yeah.
I got him over on the side on AOL. We're going old school here. So technically, this is my first Wrangler I've ever owned.
Okay.
Bought it new with 14 miles on it in April of 2014. Previous to that, I had a 4Runner, I had a Land Cruiser, but when I had those, I lived in a part of the country that, you went two-tracking. There was no rocks, there was no nothing. Mm-hmm. You drove on sand, you drove on sand dunes, you drove through fields. And with regard to getting in the scene, I can recall probably sometime in 2015 when, my Jeep was a total badass, right? On 35-inch pizza cutters, about 7 fog lights hanging off the front, probably a roof rack. And I went with a crowd as a passenger up to LMFT in New Hampshire. And at that moment, I knew, I'm like, okay, this is what I want. I want rock crawling.
And LMFT, isn't that Little Mondock Family Trail System?
Yes, and that shortly after 2015, and it's one of those trail systems that and I'm exaggerating, there's probably 100 owners that are involved in owning the property. And at some point in time, they just got tired of people barrel-assing through there and shut the gates.
Oh, wow.
So now it's sort of like the other side of Carnage Hill, which is a property that's still open.
Yep.
But the LMFT trails themselves are not open.
Huh. Well, that's sad. What kind of trails were they? Were they like similar to Field and Forest, or were they more of like a Badlands? What kind of style trails?
It was probably more like a Ma Bell that you could spend some time at.
Okay.
So some good climbs, some good vertical stuff, some nice off camber stuff, but probably you could be out there for 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
If I remember right, wasn't it also fairly long? It's like some of the smaller sections of the Hatfield and McCoy trails. that we talked about on the last episode.
Yeah. There's also it's also very, I mean, I guess it would also be like a brook ridge, you know, there's some tight turns, there's some stuff in the trees, but it was certainly a good introductory trail. But you guys, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, right? What we all did in 2015 or 2016 on 35s, you can't do anymore.
Correct.
Unless you're Cody.
Hey, I'm just trying my best, all right?
We'll get that alternator tied in there. And
you know what, though? I want to just step back a little bit and say that as far as all the stages I've ever had with any vehicle, there is something about a locked 100-inch wheelbase vehicle, maybe like a 102-inch wheelbase vehicle, that it's special to me, because whenever my Cherokees were there, I was always just blasting through stuff, and I never took it all ever seriously. It was always just fun. Like,
you just described my wife's Jeep.
And that's currently my Jeep, so I can definitely see where you're coming from, because I understand for a fact of, like, you feel like you don't really have that much skin in the game. Like, you built this rig up, and obviously I'm not talking about specifically Dave's wife, I'm just talking about my current situation, where it's like, I maybe have $4,500 into this shit box. I was 14 buying a $3,500 Jeep, or not Jeep, dirt bike. Like, it's...
Yeah,
I don't know, it's fun. It's just simple fun, and obviously I'm definitely more committed now and willing to, get into it more. The wallet's not there yet. That thing's still slim as shit, and I don't think that will ever change. But I definitely see what you mean. Once you start buying fucking $800 of tires and running through them in a season, it's like, okay, this is slowly becoming a little less fun, but it's still fun.
Oh no, it's still fun.
It's also the worst addiction I've ever had.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Booze, that's for amateurs. Buy it cheap. You want to see what an addiction really is?
Yeah.
I think the reason why it's so addicting too is because you can literally see the next step that you need to do the next hardest trail. Because it's like you can talk to the right people, you can drive more, but it's like, fuck, if I just, if I do a rear four link, if I change up to coilovers or do XYZ, get a suck down, if I like any of that shit, you just be like, why can't I do that trail? Or fuck, or even like on the lower end of the scale, lockers. When you try to go up a trail and you get absolutely denied, but some asshole with 31s open or locked front and rear walks right up it, it's like, well, there goes $600. I'm buying lockers.
Yeah. This is going to sound kind of stupid, but one of my biggest regrets on the Jeep that I was building right when you were getting into this, I don't know if you ever saw it, but my ZJ, I should have put the high pinion 30 and the 8.8 in it instead of going to the 50 and 10.5.
Was that basically just a cage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that Jeep. I remember that ZJ.
It was hard to miss.
Yeah.
It was very hard to miss.
It was a rolling eyesore.
It was. But the reason I say that is if I had done that with that Jeep, it probably would still exist today.
But do you feel that your addiction would have grown to where it is now if you had made that choice? If you hadn't done the wrong thing to make yourself better?
I do. And the reason that I say that is because I would have been able to have ironed out all those little kinks. A chopped up rig, it didn't, like, they just weren't easy to track down. Like my electrical problems, I could have figured those out while it was on 35s. If I had just done the 30 and 8.8 and a simple hybrid cage with like some nice seats in it, I would have been driving that thing everywhere. It was a hoot to drive when it was together. And then when I cut it up, yeah, I got some really cool parts out of it, and like I made something that was almost cool, but it was forever and will always be almost cool.
And that actually segues me into a question I've got for Dave about his rig. Is all the Rockaholics guys are basically full buggy, and you still have a full body.
Yep.
Can we let him introduce himself first?
Nah, don't worry about it.
All right, fuck it then.
What sort of introduction do you want him to do?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
he kind of derailed after.
Yeah,
how
we
did
got him
get into it.
He was at 35s. Now he's on 43s all of a sudden. Come on. Like,
Well,
give us a little bit of the juice. Give us a little, give us a little song.
All right, let's talk about the Jeep first, and then we'll talk about why it's not a buggy. Just give us the rundown on what you've done with it, and
let's start with why it's not a buggy.
all right.
I'm an idiot.
Are you like Mike Craig level idiot or like, Timmy level idiot?
What was the second word? Timmy?
Yeah, Timmy.
Definitely not a Mike Craig type of idiot.
Okay.
Although, I just trumped Mike Craig. I just signed up for another 5 years of payments on my Jeep.
Okay, well, it's not back half yet, so at least it's still a streetable rig.
Yeah.
So,
hey, my bank thinks it's stock and worth $25,000.
Perfect.
If they want to loan me $20,000 on it, sight unseen, I'll take it. But so the reason it's not a buggy is truly idiocy. The amount of money that we've spent, my wife and I, on axles. We both could have buggies.
Oh.
We both could have sweet Jeeps on 35s, and we could have a tow pig and a 35-foot trailer. But no, instead we have JKs on 40s and 43s.
Yeah.
At least you own it. But on the other hand,
well, not anymore. I signed up for 5 more years of payments.
touche. But I meant the owning the JK people, because I'm an XJ guy, and I wouldn't admit to that, even though I wouldn't mind having a JK on 37s.
Yeah. So, along the way, literally my Jeep's been done 5 times, right?
As it
It's a really brutal curse.
It is. So I thought I was on something like I went from going to the beach and having the top off and cruising around on 35s to wow, pizza cutters aren't really cool. But I had some sweet 35, 10.5, 17, swampers.
Yep.
So, kind of cool, but no.
They have a really big soft spot for those tires.
Yeah. Yeah, they worked in every condition, and then I think I sold them for $1,000, and the guy put 90,000 more miles on them.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
They're probably sitting in somebody's, there's probably somebody's tire swing in Western Mass right now.
No, they're probably under some XJ right now. Let's be brutally honest here.
All right, so Colin's running them, but whatever.
He's a tire stubby, and he runs those. Oh, this is another good one. We'll get into that later. He runs the MTRs, which I definitely want to talk with you about
in a little bit. So again, along the way, it was I was the idiot that didn't listen to what people were saying. They knew that I was going to just not. Too much is never enough, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I got told probably on axle upgrade number 2, why don't you just go tons? And I don't own a welder. I don't know how to weld. So I'm like, yeah, great. I can afford the $500 junkyard axles. I can't afford the $15,000 of labor and materials to make them into axles. But I can afford $5,000. So why don't we lock my 30 and my 44?
So what was the progression through the axles?
So I had the stock axle that I went ARB lockers front and rear. I think we squeezed 30 spline front Dana 30 axles in, right? I think you can do that on a Dana 30.
Sounds right.
And then after blowing those up a few times, specifically the rear ones, when I had gone to 37s, I bought a really nice Dana 44 front.
Oh boy.
That has a 3.5-inch diameter tube with 1/2-inch wall, 35 spline RCVs, an aux locker.
Oh, do you mean bling bling? Holy fuck, okay.
Yeah, it was
no, he's not playing around.
Holy shit.
Then I bought a Terraflex rear 60 full and converted both of them to full float.
What the fuck?
I think
with
that
big
this
brakes.
might be the most money we've ever talked to in axles. And
Yeah, so that was like
talked to-
12 grand by the time I got done with those axles.
Yep.
Fuck,
That,
dude.
that's about right.
Holy shit!
Fuck.
I ran that with 40s.
I remember that. That was
And-
actually right around when we met you.
Yep.
To be fair, though, yes, it was a lot of money, but those are really good axles. Like
They
to be
are.
fair, that's a phenomenal choice. I mean,
The crazy part is, though, that front axle was a DV8 housing. They made like 7.
Huh.
a DV8. What do you mean by that?
The
Is that
brand DV8.
Oh,
You know, they make
sorry.
like, you know, bad tire carriers.
Oh shit! Yeah, look at that. I didn't even.
But
So,
somehow
what I
they
just-
thought they were going to get in the axle game, and I had somebody find it for me. It was a $1,500 housing,
it's not
which
bad.
at the time, again, this is 2016, right? I mean, certain things have come down in price since then.
Yeah.
I remember a buddy of mine that was in Rockaholics. He paid 25 grand for matching 60s.
Holy
Jesus.
shit.
When they first hit the market, you could buy done axles.
Oh yeah, like
You know?
the Currys or any of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're insane money.
That stuff's
Absolutely.
come down in price. But so I wheeled those axles for a bit, and then I re-geared to 538, and I didn't like it.
Really?
So I bought 42s.
That's the natural progression. Yeah.
Yeah,
You got to fix your gearing somehow, and you're not sure as hell
Right.
not taking the gears out.
I
no,
love that so much because that like preaches exactly the thing of like buying the buggy before the horse, because then it forces you to go and buy the fucking horse to fit the buggy. I love that so fucking much.
so I ended
another
up with the
thing that I
42
wanted-
MTRs.
42 MTRs.
Yep.
Go ahead, Luke. You can, since you want to interject.
Okay. I do find it interesting though with how well that setup held up, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that the front uses the new style 44 gears, like the JK gears, if I remember correctly. So essentially, you've got a bigger pinion than the old style 44 with more gear engagement, which
Yeah,
is what kept it alive.
It's a massive 44, and if we stick on that axle for a minute before we segue to me going to 43s.
Yeah.
Yep.
So about 3 years ago now, and there's a few things going on along the way. Along the way, I got diagnosed with cancer. Along the way, I had, you know, a bunch of shit happen, literally.
Yep.
And because I'm an idiot, it was kind of proven to me that I really should have junkyard tons. So 3 years ago, I got a 60 front and a 10.5 rear. And those axles that I had under my JKU have been living happily under my wife's JK for 3 years on 40s.
And she's running them on what? Terra grapplers?
So no, so here's the other funny part. The only reason that we did the swap is because somehow when we were looking for tires, like
That's
You know,
right.
pick one-
That's right. She
pick
had
one
the
of the big tire companies, pick one of the 4-wheel parts or something. We got 5 Pro Comp mud
That's what it
terrains
was.
for $1,700 delivered.
Wow.
40s.
really,
Jeez.
really cool little fact about those, but those are actually made by Maxxis, and they are the same compound as the Trep Radial and the Razor.
They are a very good, well, you know, and you balance cost,
Yeah,
on road, off road, you know, etc. Like we've got 3 years, probably 45,000 road miles, plenty of trips to field and forest, and we're getting ready to hop in it and drive to Daytona this April.
Wow.
But along the way, my Jeep, I had the MTRs probably for 3+ years. And I'm one of those guys that all of a sudden started having blowouts randomly.
It's a bad.
no,
batch.
you just got bad batches.
I believe I did because they were all made within a 2-week period in 2017.
They must have been the same batch as Collins then, probably.
So
So-
you're the reason I make so much. give MTRs so much shit. Every time Colin tries to tout up his MTRs or anything happens to him, I'm like, oh, this is a bad batch, right?
No, man, they like. So on the flip side, Goodyear was good to me. I got 3 replacement tires at 50% cost.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
But then COVID-19 hit, and believe it or not, 42s were non-essential.
Who would have thought?
Weird.
I think
That's
they're very
weird.
essential.
And also, if you guys don't know this, Goodyear bought Mickey Thompson.
Really?
I did not know that.
Yep. They bought Cooper, and Cooper owned Mickey Thompson.
I did know that they bought Cooper. I did not know that they bought, or that Mickey Thompson was part of Cooper.
It was part of Cooper. So
that's
so now all those tires
kinda
potentially
interesting.
a bad batch of tires? Who knows?
perhaps,
Probably.
we'll see, because I got the 43-inch Mickeys now.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll hear if you have a blowout on them.
It's
Yes,
it's good
indeed.
to know that you had problems getting MTRs as well during that time, because I remember that's exactly when I was bumping up to 35s and I was looking to get a set of MTRs, but there was just nothing available. Like literally
Yeah.
across the whole country, you could not get a new set of 35s.
Yeah, basically Goodyear's like, we'll make Duratrax and that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much that explains
By
it.
the way, those are phenomenal truck tires.
They really are. They really are. So
They're great.
So along the
in
way,
snow.
this will sound a bit self-serving, but there's not much I haven't tried in a JK and keep it attainable, right? Like I use Keith at Ratchets for 99% of my work, and it's finally clicked in his head that I'm never going to coilovers because I want to be that jerk that, you know, has 15-inch travel shocks on springs.
No, man, coilovers
Why?
are the way.
But why?
Exactly. Why coilovers? What do your coilovers do that my springs and shocks can't?
Package in the back of an XJ happily and allow for exponentially easier shock tuning.
Not
You've
even
got a
that,
point,
though. You
though.
can get better. You can get better suspension geometry based off that your coil and your shock are under the same radius. Where like unless you have it perfectly matched and perfectly fabricated, so that way your shock and coil are doing the exact same thing, you just won't get that great spring, like not spring ride quality or flex quality or anything like that.
My spring's unseat anyway, so what's the difference?
And that right there is yet another great point about coilovers.
Yes.
How about limit
Yeah.
straps? You can limit strap it and not have that happen. So I
exactly.
don't want to count that one.
I ripped out a rear shock at Field and Forest because I overextended everything. I looked at my Jeep. I'm like, what is going on? So the rear shock got ripped out. The spring jumped out, but landed in the bump stop. So my spring was in, but it looked like an S.
God.
So I had to go forward, go backwards, go forward, go backwards to get it to fall all the way out. Took a ball peen hammer, straightened out the bar pin, put the shock back in, and kept wheeling.
Can't beat that. Jeez.
You'll spend money on
What-
everything but coilovers.
Yeah. Well, and again, for me, it's not. I had a great deal on some coilovers. Somebody had purchased coilovers that were too big for their Jeep, and I was going to get the special hand-me-down price.
Mhm.
But I don't weld.
Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
fair. That's fair.
You know,
So-
and I can't fault you on that because,
So
like,
The $4,000 for coilovers was not the problem.
yeah,
It was the 100 hours of fabrication that it was going to take.
Yeah, that's not cheap.
And I'm
That,
probably exaggerating on the 100 hours, but you know what I mean.
oh yeah.
yeah, you're looking at 25 hours right there, though. Like, if you wanted to do a nice set of hoops fully tied in,
Right.
you know,
Frenching in the frame, putting in shock towers, doing
Yeah,
the front
and
end
then-
right. Like anybody with a JK. So let me back up a step and say what I'm really against is bolt-in coilover kits.
okay.
Ooh, those are weird on JKs.
Right?
Oh,
Like why bother? Why bother?
it freaks me out, especially because they just go to the shock mount holes, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that so? It freaks me out, especially because it's like a shock is not the mounting brackets or the shock itself or anything in that like caliber is not designed to hold the full weight of a vehicle. So now you're gonna
Correct.
make it. I don't know. That
Yeah.
scares me.
So at the end of the day, I like being that guy that, doesn't spend $1,500 on super expensive metal cloak shocks, doesn't pay $1,500 per corner for coilovers. I literally have $600 wrapped up in springs and shocks.
Yeah, speaking of,
that's
there's nothing wrong with that.
But I have $600 per tire.
Yeah.
Put the money where it
There's nothing wrong.
Yup, that's exactly.
On the other hand, though, like, I couldn't see myself linking my XJ and not going with coilovers. Just
Right.
The story,
but that's a packaging
But
thing.
Luke, you started with a $400 XJ. I started with a $35,000 JK.
Yeah, well, no one here said that either of us was very smart.
Well, correct. Between you and I, there's both of us. Wait, what?
There might be one brain cell between the two of us, just
Yeah.
on opposite ends.
Now, what kind of control arm setup are you running that your stock suspension style still works for you?
So believe it or not, just up until I broke something last year, it was on a metal cloak long arm front and a metal cloak mid arm rear with a drop bracket.
Wow. And is
Now-
that radius arms, or is that like a full 3-link in the front and a 4-link rear?
Front. 4-link front, long arm front.
Wow. Okay, holy shit.
Another thing to keep in mind, Cody, is that the JK control arms are about 7 inches longer than the XJ control arms. So
Wait,
you've
wait,
got-
wait. Hold on. You're telling me that it was based off of the stock suspension, meaning it was like a 5-link, meaning it had a track bar and
Yeah.
the... Holy shit, and you were getting that amount of flex?
Yeah.
What the what?
They're just
How?
built different. They're designed
So-
way better than our
Do you have the
shitboxes.
picture? So, Cody, do you have the picture that I sent Luke? Have you seen that picture?
Yes, if it's... Well, which one? There's been a
The
few
one in the
that I-
snow?
Yes, yes.
That's stock metal cloak long arm kit.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yep.
That's mind blowing. And I mean, I get it. And Graham's totally right. It does make sense because obviously it's not a 19 or 2001 Cherokee. It's a newer JKU, correct? Yeah, JKU.
Yeah.
Okay, just had to double check the picture really quick. I mean, I get it, and obviously they have gone so far because you drive a TJ and then you drive a JK. It's a world of difference.
100%.
So I
But
can.
so last year, up here, there's a kid that I know that would be perfect for you guys. Way more toys than brains. Just picked up a 5-ton, so that's the kind of, doesn't really have a house to live in, but has a 5-ton that he drives around town.
Well,
That's
fuck
perfect.
it. That's all you
Right?
need.
The 5-ton
So-
is the house.
The
Somebody
5-ton can pull any house he chooses to steal.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's a single wide.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, which is what he owns. But all that
I
said,
take offense to that.
I went to his house to pull somebody out of the mud because somebody got stuck and nobody could pull him out. Well, I broke a upper control arm mount in his mud. So we 3-linked it.
You were basically already did. Yeah.
Right.
Free 3-link.
Right. And I totally XJ'd it. I freaking zip tied it back into the mount and drove it home.
Yep.
You only need 3 arms to drive.
Yeah, the fourth one's really just for
It's
extra
for show.
comfort.
But now this coming spring, hopefully when we are either in Florida or when we get back from Florida, I'm going to upper triangulate the rear and kind of go long arm rear and get rid of the track bar in the back.
Yeah, I think that'll do you some good. I mean, not that you really need it. The thing already flexes like crazy. But
The
It's
only
also
thing,
for, I want to be that jerk that hops in it and drives to Roush,
Mhm.
wheels all day and drives it home.
That's
I
Graham
will
for your-
say that the 4-link is, it's money. Timmy helped me set up mine, and it's wild, dude. It is such a trip because after grotesque amounts of bullying from IB Jeeping on the podcast and off the podcast, finally fixed my Jeep and have been driving it. And now that I'm getting the quirks of driving it on the road, it drives really nice. But off-road, it's just wild the amount of difference that you can feel in it. Like we were bombing up and down Harlan at 40 miles an hour. My front end couldn't keep up.
But he's already got coils in the rear, so it probably won't be nearly as much of a difference for him as it was for you with your leaf springs that I don't want to give you too much shit, but they definitely were not set up correctly.
No,
in
they were
some
horrible.
way. I don't know what was wrong with them, but they did not flex. They didn't
They
do
did
anything.
not have. First of all, they were like a stupid bastard pack out of whatever leaf springs I had laying around at the shop. Because if you think I'm spending $150 per leaf spring, you're smoking crack.
Well, yeah, that's
$900 worth of coilovers.
I
Okay.
literally got my 2 leaf springs for $150, Luke.
Per leaf spring.
Yeah, that was per.
Total.
No, that was per.
It's per.
I had the receipt at the shop.
The leaf springs and the 2 bushing kits came out to like $210.
What kind
Either
of leaf
way,
springs are you
besides the
putting in?
point, you think I'm spending $210 on leaf springs, you're smoking crack.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get that, but the difference in the geometry, like I keep harping on this, but geometry makes the suspension. The coils and the shocks help it, but the geometry really plays into it.
And that's the difference between, I noticed a difference between going in a quote unquote bolt-in mass-produced kit to a manufactured 3-link.
Yeah.
You know, where somebody plugged it into the computer and said, oh, here's where the upper arm should be. Here's the length that needs to be. Here's how you tuck it into the, here's the, sorry, my brain just got lost for a second. But like, here's the cross member and how it has to be in the cross member and the length it needs to be and the location centered. And, when you do all that math, now it's funny. The way that the front end moves under acceleration and under braking is almost opposite. Like, it doesn't dive under braking. It doesn't lift under acceleration.
And like for my Jeep, I was running clapped out Rubicon Express coils with I think Monroe F-150 shocks up front on 35s.
You be nice. That's what I currently have. Okay, so you watch your tongue, sir. Jeez.
And it was a cheap setup, but I tell you what, when it was on 35s and even on 1-tons, I was running the same setup forever, and my front end always worked until you do get certain quirks. Like, my front end wouldn't unload, and then when you hit a certain point, it will unload. It's very, very controllable. It's just,
Yeah. But those are the things we all get to learn our vehicles, right? Like, I can drive mine a certain way, and I know literally the tipping point.
Yep.
And other people would be like, you got that school bus through there? How'd you do that? But it's just, I've literally been doing this now with that vehicle since 2016. And also, I'm that weirdo that loves driving a stick in the woods.
Hi, you're amongst fellow company.
Yeah.
Like, I love being able to control what I'm doing and not have to tap the brakes, literally. Like, I've seen way too many people go over backwards by tapping the brakes, or go over forwards by tapping the brakes.
And that does play a massive part. Like, the reason that it matters too is because of the level of wheeling that you are used to and the people that you hang out with, the level of wheeling that they're doing. Like, you could take into consideration Cricket's an automatic rig, but it's his style choice. So like, and he always we spoke to him about it when we were up at Badlands, and he swore by it. He's like, I absolutely love it. I could choose XYZ, and it makes sense because of how he explained it, and it also makes sense to what you're saying. But it does take that little bit of extra driver skill to be able to do it. So,
but if I were doing some of the very technical wheeling, I think I'd want to be in an automatic.
There are certain benefits, but
if I was building a buggy, I would be in an automatic. If it's a full-bodied XJ, it's going to be a manual.
Yeah.
Just That's how it works in my mind.
Yeah.
You
Right?
know.
Like we all have these images, right? Like to me, Jeeps have round headlights. They have certain, they have certain tail lights. They have a certain shape, and they have a manual transmission.
That is fair. That is fair.
That's how, like if you drove a Harley, right? You have an image of what a Harley looks like.
You calling our Jeeps not Jeeps? We ain't got round headlights, mister. God, this guy.
Wrangler. A Wrangler has certain headlights. Now, if there's any if there's any freaking,
Yahoos.
square headlight Wrangler folks out there, sorry.
I don't-
fine.
The YG's having a comeback. I keep seeing more and more
Huge
people
comeback.
building them up. It's crazy.
Huge
Dude,
comeback.
I don't know what happened, but the bottom fell out on them down here. They are cheaper than XJs now.
So
That's
get me
why.
one. I want one to do a WOD setup on. Give me.
So, it's been a
Okay.
hell of a ride, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, and you guys know this. It's what I found is it's not just the wheeling, it's the people, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the camping, it's the hanging out, it's the camaraderie, it's the something happens, right? You have something go wrong in your life, and you have 100 built-in people that 99 of them are there to bust your balls, but it's the one that helps you out is the one that really matters.
Yep.
And without owning that Jeep, I might not have never met them. And I find like the Jeep community is like the Harley community, right? You take care of your own.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think necessarily the Jeep community, but I'd say the off-road community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, my drug of choice to get into that community was a Jeep.
Yeah. On that note, I really I prefer the off-road community to the Jeep community because we were talking about it before, but there's a lot of people in the Jeep community that I want nothing to do with.
Sure.
Whereas the guy that's banging limiter in a Toyota, I'm like totally cool to hang out with him, and he's probably going to have a funny story while we're burning one by the campfire.
Exactly. Right, and the picture I sent you, Luke, of 4 tires lit up while I was at up in Vermont.
Yeah.
Like not most people aren't doing that with their JKU.
Yeah, that's
No, they
the sort of
aren't.
off-road buffoonery that I
Yeah.
think all of us are about, and that's
You know
those are the things, and for me, it's been people that I never would have met. To me, it doesn't matter if you're driving a clapped out XJ or you're driving something. It doesn't matter to me. We're all doing the same thing. We're all enjoying the same thing.
Yeah,
Or
it's
you
just,
could be Luke and you're still gonna love him.
Yeah.
ouch.
Well, okay. I mean, none of us are going to his expertise. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he is such a higher level of, I don't know what you want to say, the quintessential wheeler, I guess you could say. Like, his rigs are always perfect, if you will.
My
No,
dad would have
they
called
are
them the
not.
fast.
Lap wagons.
So you just called your rigs perfect, Luke. There's literally no issue.
Yeah, I
with
was talking about Capalto's.
them. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, what are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about Capalto's rigs. How they're always like held to a higher standard than most people put themselves through.
He built
Yeah.
some beautiful rigs.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, even when he was doing JK stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some of the JKs that he built are still out there on the trails, and people are beating the bag out of them every weekend.
Did
But
like
he's
black JK.
Yep. He's a perfect example of, where the sport has gone with regard to stock bodied vehicles.
Yep.
Right? If you really want to have some fun, get rid of the body panels.
Yeah.
Or they'll take themselves off in the process. One of the two.
Right. Or just put right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I have a kind of a weird, like, I was gonna say reach around, but that felt awkward coming out of my head.
Oh, I'm down.
We're kind of weird reach around back to where you mentioned how the LMF ATB judo trail, whatever the fuck you guys called it, was like your insight into wheeling, and then you've also discussed that you're not necessarily into technical rock crawling. What is your preferred style? Do you like the do or die climbs? Do you like the large, massive rocks that you have to try not to fall in? What's kind of your style?
So for me, my perfect weekend is running every black trail at Field and Forest.
That's a damn good answer.
And normally, so I've gone there. There's been some opportunities, as you know, and you guys know, right? You become part of a club and sometimes things open up to you.
Yep.
So we've done some winter wheeling there privately and, brought some people there. We did some blue trails last winter that basically became a winching 101 course. But it was a great opportunity to pass on to others what was passed on to me.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And then typically when I'm there, so if I go for a fall crawl, if we go for wheeling for warriors, I'm always lining up to be, you need somebody to lead or you need somebody to gun. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. It's to me, right? So LMFT was somebody opening the door for me, showing me what this sport is, right? It's the most adrenaline you can have at 2 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want to do the same for others and show them, like, look what these things are capable of. Yeah. And look what you can do with them. But for me, I want to wheel stuff that absolutely pushes the limits of me because my vehicle's way better than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It pushes my comfort level. How tippy do I want to get? How vertical do I want to get? For whatever reason, I don't mind being off camber as long as driver's side is up.
See, I'm the opposite. I want to be down.
Yeah.
It's weird. I hate going up because I don't know, it throws me off.
Yeah, I feel like I can feel it. I feel like literally in the seat of the pants, I can feel what's going on. Then people are like, wait a minute, the way your motor turns, it torques that way. So you give her gas, you're going over. Right?
You know what I really hate? I hate when you get the nose down and it's down to the passenger side, because I always feel like that's going to be the longest trajectory for it to go over. So you got the most time for that thing to
I had that. I did something really stupid at Gremlin's Graveyard 3-4 years ago. I did it on purpose, which is my own fault.
God.
There was some stupid little rock pile that you normally don't go one way, you go the other. Mm-hmm. So I went up the one way, and I'm like, oh, I know this. There's a huge hole here on the left. I'll drive into it. Going downhill.
Oh.
And all you saw was left rear go skyward.
Oh, boy.
But again, having driven enough, it wasn't a tap the brakes moment. It was keep going forward moment.
Yep. So that's
if you stop with that tire in the hole, you're going.
Yep.
And that's the one thing that made me more comfortable with downhills, was actually seeing how to get out of it and how, like, not necessarily simple, but understanding that, like, throttling through or even just letting off the brake can save you from flipping over end with most downhill situations. So that's something that gave me kind of a sense of comfort, was like, or like when we were down at Rouch, one of our friends who has a full air shock rig was going down the hill he was hesitant, he was uncomfortable, and I could tell that. And it wasn't. It was Mark, and he has coilovers. Pardon me. I was thinking of Miguel. But anyways, he was coming down, and he got to a point where the whole rear of the rig started to unload, and I'm just like, hey, just let off and follow through. And just next second.
Oh, that's right. He hit that hole.
Yep.
Yep.
And I get your point 100%, Luke, because you're right. That is a very, very long time of just being without any control. You're just going for the fucking ride.
Yep.
But I guess that little sense of just like, that might be okay, of just being like, you're already in gear, your foot's already on the throttle or near the throttle, fucking tap that son of a bitch and get her out of there.
Well, that's...
And the other thing, right? Like, we all have semi-built rigs, right? It doesn't matter where we are. But by the time you take 538s, a 6-speed manual, and a 4-to-1 transfer case, like, it's doing all the braking it needs to on its own. I'm an idiot if I touch the brakes.
That's where I was going with that.
I'm an idiot if I put the clutch in.
Yeah, Cody's got got the auto, so he doesn't know. But downhills with an auto are way sketchier than downhills with a manual. You can control everything you want.
But there have been a couple of times where, like, the manual has been holding it back as I've been dropping into something. And that's one of the really nice parts about the manual, though, is like if you're going up something and you got to get out of it, you can just get in the clutch and get in the brake. Or if you're going
you can
down
feather it
something,
and you go a little bit faster. You still have that control. You're never going to be, locking the brakes up because you're not on the brakes. You're on the clutch. And granted, I mean, that has its own host of issues. You shouldn't really be riding your clutch too much going down a hill because then I can see that going bad too. But
and speaking of that, to interject, I got 111,000 miles on a stock JK clutch.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do they run for a stock clutch? Are they the same, or not? Probably not exactly the same, but is that a Luke?
Yeah, it's a 10.5 lock.
Okay.
Yeah. Is
How
it?
the fuck do you know that?
I had one.
Oh, fuck, you're right. I forgot.
I've only heard good things about that specific brand, and I ran some shitty Power Torque O'Reilly's ones, and I'm finally going back to a heavy duty.
I've had the same clutch since I did my manual swap.
My issue is they get oil impregnated because I've had a massive oil leak on my 4.0 for a long ass time, and then they start chattering.
I don't have a 4.0 long enough for that to happen. The clutch outlasts the 4.0.
Yeah.
But to come back to what I was saying, though, sometimes it's nice on the downhill when it's engine braking too hard and you don't want it to do that. You could either hit the gas, or if you just need a little bit, you can let the clutch slip, and it'll take some of the weight off of that rear. For me, I hate it when the rear, like I said, the rear driver gets light. I don't mind the rear passenger getting light. It's that rear driver that gets to me. And I don't know why that is, but that's me. And, we've covered a lot of stuff, so I want to tie back really quick into the thing about getting people into the sport. So a friend of mine down here's looking for another car, and he wants to pick up an XJ, and I'm super excited for that because I can do the same thing I did to Cody.
Yeah.
And Ricky.
You mean literally hand me the heroin needle that's called a Jeep? Yeah, pretty much.
And Luke, I was going to say that earlier. Same thing, between my wife's JK and my JKU, we've tried nearly everything. Mm-hmm. So there are handfuls of people that are willing, again, your standard run-of-the-mill person that wants to run 37s, I can tell them exactly what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Or even something simple, and I know this is a little off subject, but I had a friend that wanted a Gladiator to run 37s on. He was never going to wheel. So I'm poking through the Jeep site. I'm like, oh my God, you get a Sport with max tow, comes with 410s.
Boom.
And it, do that. Yep. 8-speed automatic, 410s, 37s, 2.5-inch lift, you're done.
Yep.
And if you add the tuner to them, they're actually really nice. I used to work at ACI down in Connecticut, and they had a little tuner in theirs, and I swear, pinky down the road, and then if you just wanted to get into get a little faster, just fucking get on throttle, and you were just right back to wherever you wanted it. It was awesome.
Yeah. So again, for us, having tried and failed so many times, gives me the opportunity to try to help people and save them a buck. Or again, if I see that they are going to go down the path I'm going to go down, I can say, save the money, go get the junkyard tons. And the market, right? Again, if you're not a fabricator, the market's actually come way down.
Oh, it has.
Done at
RTEC. RTEC, Barnes, what is it, Moto Built?
You're going a totally different line of what he was just talking about. He's saying get off the junkyard tons, which you would then buy RTEC, you'd then buy Barnes. He's saying going with a full sorry, you can explain.
If you're not a fabricator, right? So today, if we can go get junkyard tons for what, $1,000, maybe less?
Not even.
Repair? $500 is what I paid for mine.
Yeah.
But now you're going to be $6,000 in parts to make them work.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're going to put lockers in both of them?
Yeah.
Selectable?
Yeah, selectable. You're getting.
I don't
safe.
play with them.
Well,
I hate them.
But also, he's talking then RCVs, and I see where he's coming from to where it could get that pricey.
It can get that pricey.
If anybody puts RCVs in a Dana 60, I want their bank account.
But where I was going with mentioning the RTAC and the Moto Belt and all that is, you can still drop that axle off, especially even like, and I don't mean any offense by this, Dave, but if you're willing to like put in the effort, or you're younger and able to actually put in the effort to shave off all the
Oh,
brackets.
fucking old, dude. What the heck, man?
You're only as old as the women you feel.
But like, if you shave off all the brackets and stuff,
Yeah.
you get to them where they just need to do the cast cut and then weld it on, you can save yourself a ton in labor. And then the kits are so good at this point that, you know,
it's like a 7-piece jigsaw puzzle.
yeah, if you read the instructions, especially for the JKs and the TJ kits, you can literally bolt the freaking thing in, and people are starting to make like direct fit steering components for them. It's getting wild as to how much the barrier to entry has dropped.
But again, taking that a half a step further, for probably 12 grand, I can get bolt-in 60s.
That's a lot of money, dude.
It is.
That's like more than my XJ's
Yeah, but you
worth.
can bolt them in. There's no work required.
No headache,
You
no
can
nothing.
buy them, they show up, and you install them.
And
And then and you guys know this. Like, we sold Alyssa's Dana 30 that with a locker in it, and you know, we sold it done for $2,500.
Yeah, the JK axles go for a lot of money.
And people sell pairs of Rubicon axles for what, $4 or $5 grand these days?
Easily. Yeah, trying to find. Sorry, go ahead. Like with my girlfriend's current rig, we have a Dana 44, like from a JK. We're trying to find a 30 or a 44, and just to try to find a shitty housing of a Rubicon 44 is like a easy $1,000. Easily.
Yeah, and you can buy a new housing that's never been used ever for 15 when they go on sale.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you can buy a
yeah,
junk one that's broken in half and sleeve it, because you're going to sleeve it anyways if you're doing a 30. As Chris, who we had on Action Fab from a previous podcast, was explaining, you just buy a junk one that's bent, you cut the bend out of it, straighten it, sleeve it, and weld it all up. It's the same shit. And you'll get them for way cheaper.
Again, jumping around, but that's how Alyssa got on the front axle that I had. We had a 30. We went to sleeve it, couldn't get the sleeve in.
Yeah,
So it
and
was
at
like-
that point you gotta pie cut the tube and start getting serious into the modification, and if you're not comfortable with that...
Right. It was cheaper to find junkyard tons for me and swap my axles to her.
Yep.
Boom. Can't beat that.
And at the end of the day, if you're doing... And I have cheap axle shafts. Like, I went and bought the Ford 1550 axle shafts, right? I think they were $600 for the pair.
Yeah. How are those holding up for you?
Fantastic.
And that's what the greasable U-joint that they have on those by default, or did you put a solid one in?
It's greasable.
Okay, cool. That's what I have on deck, so I'm just trying to feel out the water here.
Yeah, these were... I can't remember what vendor I bought them from. I actually got them from Ford themselves, but Ford sold me a Super Duty Super 60 set.
Yep.
So the Super Duty Super 60, the short side is longer.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that doesn't work, does it?
Interesting little side note on that. I was looking into a couple of people who have done some really cool stuff with this on Pirate the other day, and this is a total tangent, so feel free to shut me
Buckle
down
up.
as we go. But what they
Who's
were
the
doing
moderator? Can we
is...
move him?
No, unfortunately you can't. You have to actually be here in person, and a good whack upside the head normally does it. But
Move you?
Morgan.
yeah, you could yell at her.
I could just do that too. I mean, hey, there you go.
Oh. Where'd he go?
Yes.
Well,
That wasn't very nice.
No, we have grams. Don't worry about it. But go ahead, Luke. So what were you saying? Super 60?
cutting the long side down so that they could have a little bit more tube length on the short side. And they were running a off-the-shelf inner axle shaft. I forget what it was out of, but I thought that was just a cool piece of tech to get that like old school width. But under an XJ, you really don't want to do that.
I know somebody that did it with their LJ. got Super Duties cut to TJ with.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was talking about the Super 60, like the
big
450
one,
and
the big one.
550 axle.
Yeah.
Which,
Wow.
by the way, if you guys ever get to see one of those knuckles are massive. Like,
There's a guy that is in JSF or something like that. One of the group that Mark wheels with, and the first time I ever saw his axle, I'm like, wait, that's a 60, but what the massive knuckles. It's insane.
yeah, I think it's 13.5 inches between the ball joints on the
Crazy.
F450
Jesus
and
Christ.
550 ones.
That's
damn.
insane.
Wow.
But, again, it's also just like looking at your usage, right?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe RCVs are $2,500 for a Dana 60.
God damn,
Is
I've
that
never
good.
Yeah.
Well, the lifetime warranty I think is the biggest thing. You snap those, you
Yeah,
send them
good
back.
luck getting it replaced.
What's the
They
warranty
need-
on those? Is that up to a 30 or a 43, or is that still the 40? I know they were
I
Was
think
it
it's
40? The
40s,
reality is they need to grenade for you to get it replaced.
yeah, they need to like fully split. If they're twisted,
Yeah.
they won't take them. And I think we actually talked. Again, I'm going to bring Chris back up. He had a set for a Dana 30, and it was I think it was him. It was twisted. It wasn't broken, but it was twisted, and he just ran it, and it never broke.
Yep. Yeah, and
Wow.
we have a set in a Dana 44 that it needs maintenance every year. It'll break, it'll shear, it'll this, it'll that, it'll blow out some bearings,
Mhm.
but that's not a replaceable. That's not a warranty item. That's wear and tear.
Yeah. So you just have to go balls to the wall and snap those
Yeah.
things every time you're going to break them. Basically.
Yep.
Jeez.
The thing about
But again,
that scares me is when you're talking about breaking something like that, is it going to be the RCV or is it going to be your ring gear?
Probably not the RCV.
Right. And that's the thing it's really hard, Luke, and that's a lesson that I never learned. But where do you want the weak point?
We talked about this with Action Fab. My weak point is still my hubs, and I know it's a shitty weak point, and it breaks a lot, but it's like, fuck, man. One pair of small needle nose pliers and a 5/32 Allen wrench. Give me 5 minutes, and if it doesn't blow the inner shaft, I'm wheeling again. If it blows the inner shaft, well, I'm already on the way to pulling the unit bearing. So,
Until
Right.
it doesn't break, and then your center section.
yeah, but then you
snaps
blow
in
the
half.
snap, or you blow the inner,
You're
or you
not
blow
gonna
the
blow the
shaft.
You're not going to blow the inner.
Sorry, not the inner,
you're
the
gonna
outer.
You're going to be breaking your diff.
But
My
Yeah,
30
I'm
splines.
But these are things that many of the run-of-the-mill off-roaders never even think about.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a good
I'm
point.
not suggesting that I'm not run-of-the-mill. I'm just suggesting that I've heard this stuff, right? I've seen it in practice. And I
Don't
may
sell
not have
yourself
ever,
short. You're not running
I've
the
never
mill.
really followed that advice, right? Like I'm the idiot that locked the Dana 30. I'm the idiot that put
there's
48,
nothing
488s
wrong with
in.
that, though.
Hey now.
Like,
But
I
again,
mean,
it's,
I think
Yeah.
some of the most fun I have ever had wheeling has been on a locked Dana 30 in a $300 XJ with a stupidly built 3-link that was far better than the rest of the Jeep. Like, that thing just worked.
Correct. And to be fair though, you building that 30 did allow you guys to give that to your wife so that way she could come out and have fun in a confident rig.
yeah,
So,
and actually it sort of transpired. My 30 went somewhere else. She ended up with a different 30 and then ended up in a 44. But yeah, and then literally so funny enough, the reason that her Jeep is the way it is because she was told she couldn't go to Field and Forest.
really?
Not locked.
Oh, gotcha.
She's like, I'll show you. I'll stretch a JK. I'll put it on 40s. I'll outwheel all of you.
And
So-
speaking, sorry, go ahead, Luke.
I've spotted for Alyssa, and that is always an entertaining trip. I'll save that for when we get her on, but she is fun to spot for.
Well, what I learned, so we had her up at Jericho when she was on 35s, open. And literally it was like, okay, honey, the line is drive up the tree. It worked. But so she's wicked good with, giving her here's the line, if she can't see her own line. And that's the thing that I think, I don't know about you guys, but that's how I got brought into this game. Like, I go on Instagram and I'm like, why does every Instagram wheeler have a spotter within 2 inches of them?
Yep.
Like, don't you know your rig? So the moral of my story is she specifically has learned to pick her line and then ask for help when it's not working.
So it takes a special person to have that, though. Like, I only learned that from dirt biking. Like, when I was racing in the woods, like, you're going through the trails as fast as you can. You need to pick the best line that you see fit. And not many people have the confidence in themselves to be able to do that. Like, especially in the sense of Jeeps, too, where if you don't really know where your rig is positioned,
it's multiple
correct.
Things. I think part of it's line choice. I mean, but realistically, you're thinking about two lines. You got, your track width. You got 2 lines you have to focus on, and you sort of have to visualize it. I agree completely that it's
Cody, taking your thought and fast forwarding it to something else. She likes to hike in the mountains. Her taking Jeep lines helps her take trail lines.
I love that.
But also, and then Graham, what I also, it's one of those hard things to get a brand new off-roader, and I'll say Jeeper because they're generally entry-level people where off-roaders might not be. But getting a Jeeper to understand you drive over things, not around them.
Or put them between the wheels. It's
right.
Yeah.
Or anytime if I get an opportunity and it's nice enough day out and I'm getting a newbie out on the trail, we start under the Jeep. Here's where your diff is. It's in front of your steering wheel.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
Here's where this is. These are things you can hit. These are things you can't hit.
Yep.
And that's funny because one of those days that we were up at Harris back in the day with Cody, we were just having a conversation about how, like, I was just comfortable with wheeling my tons. And I'm like, yeah, this hood line right here is the center line of my diff. And that one over there, the far body line, is where my control arms are. So I just know that, and I kind of guesstimate off of that.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it, but that could actually be super, super useful for somebody, like, not necessarily first trip, because they are probably just so, like, overstimulated with everything going on that they can't even think about what's under and what's happening under. They're just looking forward and hoping not to run somebody over or hit a tree. But second time out, after they get a little bit more comfortable, that's something huge that I never really thought about doing with somebody, was actually getting them to understand and try to visualize in their head, like, where is my diff at this moment in time? Am I just going to diff out on everything?
Yep. Like, and if you're dealing with Cherokee people, it's really easy to get a direct line because that bow in your hood on the driver's side is right where your diff is, roughly. Give or take 2 inches, but that's where it's going to be.
And speaking on your wife, when you guys first started dating, or however the whole situation happened, how did she kind of take wheeling? Because did she do it as a kid? Like, what was the whole process?
So if she were here, and she'll probably pipe up from the other room and correct me, but she was a I wheel where I want to wheel person.
Okay.
I do what I want is what she just yelled from the other room. and that was her bombing trails at Maple Park down like in Wareham, Mass, which were technically legal trails.
Yes,
but they were. But they were just like, trails.
Mm-hmm.
But that was her on her, 33-inch Terra grapplers and, maybe no lift. But what's interesting, and again, we all come from different walks of life. What she finds wheeling helps her focus. like if people that are anxious, right? Something that takes your mind off of your mind doing 1,000 things, and you have to focus on where are my tires.
Yep.
Like somehow wheeling becomes, although it's nerve wracking, it becomes relaxing. It lets her mind rest.
I get that though, because like we're gonna go on another weird little tangent here. My mind runs on rails. There's
Rails of
just
what?
like little side tracks to the rails. But when I'm wheeling, I don't actually have to focus on that. It just becomes, okay, Graham is in front of me, Cody's behind me, Kish is behind him. Graham went up the center line. I don't like that center line because I know how my rig is with my terrible leaf springs. I'm gonna hit that a little bit to the right side of it, and I'm gonna just drag my slider up the center of that. And if I hit it in first with a little oomph, it should go. And all right, we're coming up to this set of, paths, and I have to run down the rails. So am I going to go left or am I going to go on the right line? And that's just the way it's going to be. Instead, I'm wheeling. All right, that didn't work. Cool. I'm going to give this a shot. Or I didn't like how that went for him.
To go back to your real question, she hates being a passenger.
Really?
Yeah, I believe it.
And
I love it.
Where it started was, or where the worst one was probably 4+ years ago. 4-inch lift, 37, locked. I don't know what axles I had underneath it, but I was going to do a hero trail at Jericho. Nobody could go up the reds, but I could come down the red. So there's a weird little red loop that's kind of a black to go up and a red to come down. I still think there's a little trickle of pee in my passenger seat from where she was.
So this leads me into a little side note about the rig. Do you have harnesses in that thing yet?
Nope.
Oof.
Oh boy.
But she does.
Good.
Yeah, well, she's got a couple more brain cells than the two of us put together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you have a cage of some
Nope.
sort.
Nope.
You don't? What?
Nope.
I swore you had
Factory.
something. Wow. Okay.
But then
You
again,
gonna-
that probably goes back into the whole engineering of the newer vehicles compared to the TJs. The TJs were literally designed only for, I believe it's the weight plus half of, 1.5 times the weight of the vehicle, like crush rating.
Yeah. And again, there's always an unexpected scenario, but I try not to put myself into a position where I could tip over.
But you just said earlier that you're comfortable off camber.
Yeah, but I'm not going to tip over and roll down a mountain. I'm going to tip over and fall 2 feet.
Fair. That's fair.
There is a difference.
But
She
But
might
yeah,
have
so-
a panic attack, and you might not enjoy Harlan then. Harlan's sketch balls, man.
But for me, I probably should have one. There's been discussion of one.
Don't build one
it's-
now.
it-
Not with
it's money.
prices.
Right, it's money.
insane
Right now.
money.
It's always money. I tried to scoop up like somebody's bolt-in cage because they're parting. They were selling their JKU. I'm like, I'll take your bolt-in cage. It's better than what I got.
Yeah.
But they decided not to part out, and I think they're still making payments instead of selling.
Oh, jeez.
Oh boy.
But that's how Alyssa got the front half of a rock hard cage from Mike Craig.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
When he first started getting out of bolt-in stuff and actually cutting tube, we got a great
Just
deal on
take
that. Somebody else had the harness bar, but he was like 6'5" and couldn't sit in his Jeep with the harness bar in because the seat wouldn't go back far enough.
Can we just talk about how sweet that rig was when it was on 40s and he was using that as his daily? I really,
Sure.
really liked that rig at that point in time. It was super cool to me.
Yeah. I mean, basically, that's a little bit what Alyssa built is
It
an
is.
8-inch stretch JK on 40s with a bolt-in cage and PRP seats
Then it'll do
Yeah.
just about everything.
with body panels without a dent in them.
That's nice.
And then actually,
I don't
guys,
know
if you
what
ever look at
that's like.
her Jeep, the one trick, the one thing that I take all the credit for, and it was 3 years ago, this year, sitting in Daytona. I was recovering from a surgery after my cancer diagnosis, and we had some front. What's a really good brand name of fenders? I can't think right now.
That's
Not metal
right.
cloak. Gen right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick the next one down.
Metal cloak.
Yeah, again.
Alyssa,
Alyssa, what are
I
your
don't know,
fenders?
man.
Poison Spider.
Ah,
I should have said those. Yep.
So we're sitting there, and we had some front Poison Spider fenders to put on. We brought them with us to Daytona because, like, again, I was just getting out of the hospital, just finishing up our camper, just whatever. So we brought the aluminum Poison Spiders with us, and she had just rear skins. So we bought TNT skins, I think, in the back, or whatever company did the 8-inch stretch skins. And I said, oh my God, guys, stop. If you take the left front fender, it makes a perfect right rear fender with a stretch kit.
And then just flip it backwards, right? Is what you're saying?
So she has like fenders that start in front of the tire and then end up just going flat over the top of the tire.
Wow.
So if you ever take a peek at her Jeep and look at the rear fenders, they're front fenders.
that's pretty funny. I didn't think about that.
And then somebody was selling a set of steel front fenders, so we picked those up to make them the rear.
Works. That
And I
works
just-
really well.
And I notched the driver's side one so you get the gas nozzle in there.
Simple.
Wow. I love how simple that
And
is.
to make her Jeep even better, she has 2-door XJ rails. Because it's the right wheelbase between the wheel wells.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, though.
Yep.
Because, like, when you think about it, my two-door isn't that much longer than my JK was between them. I think it's, like, maybe 2 inches longer. But if
Yeah,
you've got the stretch in the rear,
Yep.
you've got the stretch in the rear.
Wait,
That
so
works.
what's her current wheelbase?
104.
Oh wow, that's like spot on to I believe that's roughly
Damn,
where
that's
I'm at.
short for 40s, though.
Not really.
Not on a Wrangler.
Yeah, really.
Not on a Wrangler though, and especially if she's not running reds, then it's still gonna have plenty
Yeah.
of suspension travel and
Right,
ground
like
clearance.
it's so funny to me. And again, this is one of those stupid thoughts that my brain has. All these morons want to take 2 doors and stretch them. Why don't you take a 4-door and body chop it?
And there's still more center section though. I'd say on a
But
when
people
they're-
are stretching their rigs to 116, 118
Yeah,
to run
and they look
full speed.
stupid. They look so dumb. I hate the look.
I really,
you really need. That's why
like
people are doing
the,
LJs to
Yeah.
with the Wrangler stuff because you can stretch them and it doesn't look totally god awful.
Right.
I like the 2 doors, but I like them punched out to like 108, 109, 110.
Right, which is like how Zach was building them. Basically,
Yeah.
the rear
Yeah.
tire is beyond the bumper, and the front tire is beyond. Like the tires are at the end of the body.
Yep.
You have a 0-degree approach angle and departure angle.
And like that's just part of that comes from the fact that I love the 110-inch wheelbase range. To me, it's a sweet spot for a
Yeah.
40.
But I just found it so funny that people spend all this time and energy stretching vehicles out to 116, 118. Jeep already makes one that way. Find a body guy, cut the tub, make the tub shorter.
You know what would be kind of cool would be if you left the back seat in it and then you kind of like shorten the area right
That's
in
what I'm
the
saying.
trunk
Yeah, just get rid of
section.
the cargo.
Yeah, that would work really well.
Yeah. Because
But
there's
even-
nothing back there.
but there's your gas tank runs right there, doesn't
You're gonna
it?
put a fuel cell in it anyways.
You're going to put a fuel cell in it anyway, and your gas
And-
doesn't go beyond your rear tire.
Yeah, on the JKs, it's actually mounted in the next to the frame rail. It's not
In-
mounted in the back where the
TJ.
yeah.
That
So-
terrifies me that the major quote unquote slide zone of a JKU is where the gas tank is.
Yeah, factory
but-
skid plate made out of tinfoil. It's fine.
I will tell you what.
It's a plastic
that
tank. I
factory
drag mine over
skid
rocks all
plate-
the time.
that factory skid plate works surprisingly okay on a stock Jeep for what a stock Jeep can get into.
And wheelbase, if we're going to get on a little tangent here.
Oh, we always do.
I don't think it was until like last year that we even ever upgraded her transfer case skid, because the breakover angle, she never landed on the transfer case. Mine looks like a frickin' Pringles.
Yeah, that'll happen. Well, you also drive a fucking school bus, so...
Hey, I'm not even allowed within 50 feet of a school, so don't even be talking about
I'm just going to leave that alone.
Yeah.
So,
but again, it's this sport, this community is something where, right, like the 5 people on this screen would have never met.
No.
We would have nothing in common.
No,
we would
and
never have been.
Sorry, go ahead.
We wouldn't have been in the same campground in Monson ever. We would have never been in the same campground in Vermont ever.
yep.
Just no way.
Oh,
And
man.
somehow we have something in common that we can talk about. And for the most part, right, there's some dinks out there, right? Doesn't matter what industry or what circle you travel in. There's always going to be somebody that thinks they're better, has knows more than you. But for the most part, the industry's pretty understanding. Although I will say, right, in the JK Wrangler world, there's like the 10 ages of Jeep ownership. And one of them is when you get to the part where you're like, yes, fucking 35s will fit.
Yes.
Stop asking. No,
Put 'em
no,
on.
you don't run your tires at 65 psi. I understand it says that on the sidewall, but that's not what you run them at. Like, you get to that place where you've just answered the question so many times, and again, I'm just going to sound like an old crotchety man here, but I'm not. Like, when did we stop using Google and start using some Facebook page to ask
We
a
are going
question?
to hit this one again. This is where the fucking forums were goddamn fucking beautiful, because there was always a sticky right there of frequently asked questions
Right.
on every single Jeep bill, or every single Jeep type, like on Jeep form. Frequently asked questions. What does this lift and this tire size look like?
Boom. That was actually
Devolving.
probably one of the greatest links ever to come up on the internet, because it was awesome. Because when I first came into Jeeps, I don't fucking know what a 4-inch with 35s or 33s looks like.
And it's a valid question if you're a newbie. It's just
But I
frustrating
also
when you've been
love-
in the game for 5-10 years,
Yeah.
and you've had to you've posted the picture of your Jeep at that stage at however many times. It's like, come on, like, somebody's got to use the search function.
I've been doing this shit now for 10 fucking years, and it's like, I miss being able to just grab that form thread and copy and paste it. And that thread doesn't have working pictures anymore because
somehow-
Photo Bucket.
In 2022, Luke, someone would tell you you're wrong.
I know, it's fucking amazing.
No,
My
I'm sorry,
favorite-
that's not real. Nope. But it is, and so now I just default to, I'm sorry, you spelled 43s wrong. Can somebody show me a picture of a Jeep on 2.5-inch lift and 35s? I'll slap mine up there with 7-inch lift and 43s and tons.
Yes.
Well, that's like, I wasn't on Facebook for a really long time, and I'm finally back. And, like, I'm going back to my old hangouts of Club XJ and stuff. And they're like, can I fit a 35 on a 3.5-inch lift? And I'm like, 40s fit. Just get to it, dude.
Yeah.
You know
what
With the
doesn't fit is
picture-
32s on a WJ.
That was like, I grabbed that picture Mike Craig took of my rig or I forget who, Megan took, not Mike Craig, Megan, where it's just shooting smoke out on Brookridge. And, like, it's just stupid because people don't understand how to Google anymore. And
No.
it's so much easier to get an instant validation on a question than it is to literally type the same exact question into Google.
Right.
It's the same question that they're already typing.
Yeah, it just drives me up the
Listen,
fucking
Google's
wall.
new. It hasn't been around.
You're right. You're right.
It's new.
It's so tough to learn too. I can't figure it out
Learning's
yet.
hard.
Speaking of it's new, I think. So we moved. We bought a house. We're living 35 minutes from Field and Forest.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So we set Alyssa's computer up the other day, and a cat walked by it and opened up a screen to Bing.
What's that?
To be
What?
fair, Graham uses Bing.
The cat
so-
out.
No, I don't.
Oh, you use Firefox. Sorry.
Yeah, that's no.
Bing, Bing was like another Google.
They tried.
Are we gonna overlook how Cody just thought a search engine was a web browser for a second there?
It's the same.
No.
My startup program.
Oh, but I
Google
use
was
the Bing browser. Okay.
Whatever.
Why don't you Bing that shit?
Wasn't GoDaddy trying to do that at one point too? They were trying to be a search browser,
I don't know.
or was that just advertisement shit? Or like the
Well,
woman with
they're
like, big breasts, and they were just like, it was for something stupid, wasn't it?
they do DNS hosting. That's their big big thing.
DNS
They used to do a bunch of advertising.
That's what it
about
was.
your
It was
business. It was like make your business better by having your website name on GoDaddy. When in reality, every DNS host is the exact same. It doesn't matter. So there's your non-wheeling tangent
Y'all
for the
making
day.
stuff up.
Wait, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Quick
man.
question. So we got two of them that I'm gonna bring up. One of them is, do you have a raccoon fact for us?
Raccoon fact.
Any animal fact that's pretty interesting.
Well, I heard actually that the average diameter of a raccoon's body is 7 inches,
Okay.
and your anus can stretch out to 8 inches.
No, I thought this was that they're. I've heard this one before, but I think it's better. You can fit more than one because they can shrink down.
Listen,
To like
you can
3
fit more
inches.
than one. I cannot fit more than one. Actually, in a wicked funny story, my wife will kill me. So this weekend
no.
was like this past weekend was like the opening Maple weekend up here. So we went down the road a mile and pulled into somebody's house, and their freaking 18-year-old daughter comes out and their 17-year-old, 20-year-old son, and we're shooting the shit. And I brought up that I had cancer, and I'm like, they found a golf ball in there. I'm like, not a real golf ball. And the guy's like, well, I'm an EMT. You'd be surprised what we find.
Dude,
I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm done.
I will tell you this. I have one of my friends down here is an ex-EMT, and there's a reason that he is an ex-EMT, and some of that is definitely
Yeah,
helped.
man. Listen, Luke, I slipped in the shower, and the shampoo bottle, like, it went right up there.
Self-inserted.
You
Excuse
can
me,
only
son.
use that excuse up to the third time, and then they just start questioning you.
You need a grip mat for your
Right.
bathtub, Jesus.
And then they asked, like, I'm sorry, you have shampoo that's shaped like a fist?
Well,
Cody, what was your
They
follow-up
make
question?
bottles in
Higher-
like every shape now.
So my follow-up question, it has nothing to do with raccoon facts, just to be clear.
Or shampoo bottles.
What is your favorite and most hated DOT tire?
Wow. So let me start with what I've run.
Okay.
So my Jeep was a Willys originally. So it had those 32-inch BFGs that are absolutely the worst tire in the world because they will cup after about 4,000 miles.
Good to know.
Are these
So
the traditional BFG with the lugs?
yes.
However they are.
AM1 factory edition.
Yeah.
So I've had those. I had a set of Swamper SSRs. I had mud graps. I had trail graps. I've had MTRs, and now I've had the Mickey Thompson, whatever the hell those are, the XS Pros or something.
The big boys.
The big boys. So the Mickey, to be fair, and this is only for Graham's, arsenal. My MTRs were my favorite dot tire that I've owned.
Really?
Up until they started imploding, They did everything I wanted them to do. They wheeled in the wet. They wheeled in the dry. They went down the highway at 100 miles an hour. They did everything well.
They sort of went down the highway at 100. And then
they went down the highway at 100.
Just...
and then, like, at 65 one day when it exploded.
Oh, you were on the highway when it exploded?
Yes, at 65, 70 miles an hour coming back from an NEA meeting in Western Mass. Right
Holy
rear
shit, that's scary.
Right rear, thankfully.
Yeah, so how does that... It's been a question that's been, I think, really since that tire blew. It's been in the back of my mind, like, what happens when you blow a 42-inch tire and you're going 75 on the highway? How sketchy is that?
It was not so bad, but again, not being an idiot in the passing lane, right? I was probably in the middle lane or maybe the right-hand lane going 70.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to go far to get into the breakdown lane.
That's
The trouble was, or the good part was, is imagine if it was a front.
Oh,
yeah.
So I've only ever
probably
had
losing
rear
control.
tires blow. I blew a right rear and I blew a left rear. Now, what has been said to me, and I don't want to believe this because I think it's absolutely how do I word this? Why make an MTR in a 42, right? It's for off-road.
Yep.
I was told it's because I aired them down too low and compromised the belts.
Yeah.
What?
In your off-road tire, aired them down too
Yep.
low. Makes sense.
I can only understand that to a small, minute level in the sense of you aired them down too low and put them through too many heat cycles at that low of a PSI, and it compromised the belts.
So typically, how low do you go?
5.
Okay.
Okay, I
but
mean,
on a 42, that's really not, like, that's probably like me on the 37 going to an 8, which is
and the thing
aggressive
is,
on the
like,
37.
like full of air, they're at 20.
Oh, yeah, that's the other, I didn't even think about that, is when you're aired them up, it takes less because the sidewall's so much, there's just so much more of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's how that
So
works.
all that aside, for me personally, the MTRs have been my best tire, but also my worst tire.
The most dramatic tire, for sure.
Yeah. And then the hard part was, right, they were $700 a pop, and then you couldn't get them.
Yep.
Jesus.
That's why I hate
So
them. You can't get
the
them.
new Mickeys, I've only been out with them. The Mickeys were terrible my first couple of trips out. Couldn't get them to hook up on anything.
Huh.
Then about the third or fourth trip, they must have broke in,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're
Such
fantastic.
a real thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once you round the edges off, because that's the biggest thing is you're taking your traction pad that you're used to being like an inch down to just that little tiny edge.
But it also, those tires have basically made my Jeep unable to be driven on the highway at anything over 65 miles an hour.
Oh,
They just
boy.
don't
Why is
balance
that?
well. They noisy, or what's
They're way quieter than a mud wrap,
Huh.
number one,
Huh?
but they're 18 and a half inches wide at 20 PSI.
18?
Wow.
Wait, are
Outer
you?
lug to outer lug, they're 19 inches wide almost.
Holy
I didn't think they were that wide. That's insane. I mean,
So
those
when you
Big motherfucker.
when you try to push, I'm pushing a 6,000 pound brick rolling
so
on
it just
4
won't
brick.
go any faster.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I got to be in fourth.
Jesus.
Oh my god! Now, with your current steering setup, which I'm guessing is hydro assist, right?
Yep.
Do you have troubles moving such a large tire as
Never.
your?
And I only went to hydro assist with 40s. I used to wheeled my 40s, but again, going back to the manual transmission thing, you could rock your Jeep a little bit, clutch in gas, and just get it to rock and turn the tire
That's
a
true.
little bit easier than you could with an automatic.
Yeah.
It-
I never.
As long as you
had
know your
the-
rig, I bet you that works. But I've seen, we were with a group of TJs one of the times I went to Field and Forest, and they didn't have they had every other modification under the sun, but they didn't have hydro assist, which was actually kind of surprising. And they could not turn from if they had to be in one spot and turn their tires, they couldn't. but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on this one. I'm sure it's doable if you can feather that clutch, like you're
but
saying.
It's not ideal.
No, yeah.
I can also tell you I wheeled. Where did I go? So trails that nobody really goes to. So I went to Ma Bell on one day, and then the next day we went to Old Florida Road and Tunnel Road. And somewhere along the way, I lost my power steering pump with 37-inch mud graps.
That
and
sounds
that was
like a
my
fun day.
Yeah, that was my second body damage ever. I got into a tree and couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, because you had you couldn't. You probably couldn't.
We literally did use the come along around the door frame and around the factory cage.
Mm-hmm.
A come along to pull me to passenger so I could drive through it.
Jeez.
Wow.
Because I couldn't steer.
Huh.
Yeah.
These things will happen.
Yep. But again, my favorite and worst tire are the MTRs, other than the stock tires that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it blows me away. There's really no bad tires out there. It's bad for your use.
Patagonias suck.
Not for driving down the street at 40 psi in the tires. If all you're doing is street driving, they're perfect.
My trail graps actually feel better on the road than the Patagonias did.
I would say the 40-inch trail graps were probably the overall best tire I've had.
Luke's loving that.
I'm loving it. I'm a huge fan of those tires. They're not the greatest tire.
It's nothing against the tire. I just, for whatever reason, the lug pattern just always made me mad.
Yeah, Alyssa couldn't look at my MTRs. She didn't like the asymmetrical. She made her want to get dizzy.
I don't love that either, but it's not my main gripe.
They work.
Like they're a solid, stupid tire that does pretty damn well everywhere, and they're bulletproof.
What, the MTRs or the?
No, the Nittos.
Yeah, and they're $450 a tire or something these days.
No, they ain't anymore.
They're $550 a tire.
Now they are.
Yeah.
They used to be a lot cheaper, but then the coof hit and everything got expensive.
But and then on the flip side, I would say, and I know the question wasn't asked, but getting a proper transfer case makes all the difference.
Yep.
In my ability to wheel.
What do you have for a transfer case?
Just a Rubicon case.
Just a Rubicon? Okay.
But
I wasn't sure. We've covered that previously, just how much that gearing makes a difference versus the stock 272 or whatever the JKs have.
The math, right? If you did the math, I'm going to do it backwards. Basically, if you had 410 gears with a stock case, it's like having 270 gears with a Rubicon case. Who would run 270 gears in their diffs? Nobody. I mean, not unless you had a full 55 muscle car that you were trying to get 20 miles to the gallon in and still be able to do burnouts.
Yeah.
But the reality is you don't think about the way that math multiplies until you're doing it.
Yeah, it's a pretty insane difference for how little number change there is.
Right.
Yeah, 5-1 versus 272-1 is a major difference that I've seen with your rig, Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, transfer cases are like the Richter scale. A 1 is not too bad, but a 5 will kill you.
Yep.
That is true. I mean, you guys are saying it's a small number jump, but it's literally doubling it.
Like, it's 50%. It's 50%. It's a 50% increase or decrease, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So far,
significant.
Yeah.
It's pretty far upstream too, so that's got a huge effect on the overall effect of the number, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like you're adding. If you go from 410s to 538s, it's going to make a difference. But it's not going to be as life-changing as
it's a 20% increase.
Yeah.
And speaking of all that, and again, I know the question wasn't asked. If I were to do this all over again, portal tons. Stop.
Wait, that's it? Just portal tons and just run it?
Portal tons. You get the multiplier in the axle. You get the diffs up out of the way. It's a game changer. And
you're also
but-
raising the center of balance of
Yeah,
lot,
but that's
though.
even more valuable than this is. We've talked about this with as far as shaving your differentials to gain that extra inch. You don't need as big of a tire if you've got those.
Right.
It's all about getting the axle off the ground, not so
Or
much.
you can get a 40 in there and have it have more clearance than a 35 and a 30.
Yeah.
And you just don't like. When I was a newbie, right? You get a lift because you want to get over things.
Mhm.
You didn't lift anything. Tires.
Yeah.
Tires is what
Tires.
tires is what gets your stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm. And the look,
Or some fabrication or cutting off the shock mounts and putting them on top of the axle. But for your regular run-of-the-mill Jeep person, off-road person, if you want your pumpkins to get up in the air, you got to get bigger tires.
Yeah.
And then, like I told Alyssa when we were first starting to build her Jeep, I'm like, 37s cost $6,000. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, axle upgrades.
Yep.
37s will cost. We can get used 37s for $500. It's going to cost us $6,000 if you want to wheel them properly.
Properly, yeah. I was gonna say we have a front with the Cherokee with 37s. Doesn't mean it's gonna hold those for very long.
Right.
I'm
So-
just going to sit here and smugly grin with my $2,500 axles.
Yeah.
But you had that availability, and that's the biggest.
Oh, yeah, no.
difference is you had the knowledge to do the wheeling, but also this is your first rig that you've built, correct?
Yeah.
Dave? So
I haven't built anything. I think mine is bought, not built.
no. Regardless, so this is the first.
You wheel
rig
it like
you've
it's
taken
built,
this
like you
adventure
haven't
with.
built yourself, though. In my opinion.
Luke's had 6 rigs. So if you really want to say your axles are 25, 3 fully built that you would consider fully built.
3 that I've cared about, yeah. And
So
built.
so what you're saying is though, take the cost of the axles from Ducky, take the cost of the axles from
Oh yeah,
your
knowledge isn't cheap.
44. So really,
No, I'm just
$100 set of
chuckling.
axles. It's probably somewhere in the range of 8,000.
Yeah, and it's also not common for someone to do a 1-ton swap in a month. But, I'm just going to take my little chuckle and enjoy my little chuckle because I don't want to fathom the amount of money and the amount of pain and suffering that went into figuring out how to do a axle swap in a month and
It's the
rolling.
unheard cost. That's the cost
Yeah.
you don't hear about.
Yeah. And again, there's a market for everything, right? There's a market for $100 wheelers and there's a market for $100,000 wheelers.
And I've seen $100 wheelers do everything that a $1,000 wheeler, $100,000 wheeler's done. And vice versa. Obviously, that's the easiest.
Survive a rollover.
I'll be honest. There's been a couple of times where, just with my rig being what my rig is, there's been times where I've watched Cody Billy goat up something in front of me and then had to hit rev limiter going up it, or Kish doing that, and they're running $3,500 to $4,500 rigs.
I mean, the benefit to the lighter rigs with the smaller axles is they're so much lighter. You get around a lot of the issues with Dave, yours and mine and Luke's. I mean, we're all pushing easily over 55.
We're all in the 5 club.
Which is just it's so much more versus those guys, which are probably around maybe $4,000.
Well, I mean, I'm carrying around 1,000 pounds of rim and tire.
Yeah.
Yes.
God damn.
How much does it weigh? What does a JK
I haven't
weigh
been
from
on
the
a scale.
factory? Oh God, you got to go. It's got to be around. I don't know.
It's got to be close to
7.
You don't have a cage though, so that's helping you a little bit.
Yeah, but it still started out as a
Yeah, you're probably in like
That's-
in the
it's almost the same weight.
5,500 realm, at least.
Yeah, I
Plus
would
the
guess.
axles.
I would guess it's just and probably I've got a little work to do because my fuel cell ate another fuel pump and ate something in the tip'em, which nobody wants to talk about in a JKU. So JK's under the fuse panel is your fuse pump relay, which is not serviceable.
Ooh.
Oh.
So unless you're like a micro solderer,
Okay.
not a micro penis person, micro solderer. Big difference, Cody. But I mean, I'm familiar with both. However, I'm not good at the micro soldering.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah,
I
that's-
found somebody makes a workaround, like you plug into this and you just get to bypass everything. But my relay must have been on the way out. So I replaced the fuel pump. It lasted 2 months. And then it crapped out again. So it took like half the brain and the fuel pump. But fast forwarding, in my little podunk town, 7 minutes from here, I can get ethanol-free super unleaded, and I can't wait. Because fuel cells with your RTV does not like ethanol.
No, they do not.
And that was another thing that I was not expecting when I moved, but I can get ethanol-free gas here, like at every station.
That's great.
Costs more, but like the way I view it is,
It's $1 a gallon more here for ethanol-free.
yeah.
But
it's
you
like
don't ruin fuel lines. You don't ruin your RTV seals on your shitty fuel cells. Technically, I'm pretty sure you can get better mileage off of non-ethanol gas. There's a lot of benefits to that, I'd think.
Yeah.
I just realized I was muted. Not really though, because ethanol is really, really healthy for motors though as well. Just like leaded fuel, they all have their special quirks that
Right.
can do beneficial things.
Like
I mean,
E85 is not bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can get some good performance. Like I'm addicted to watching Engine Masters.
mhm.
They'll run something from E85 to, Sunoco race gas and play with the timing and see what it does to horsepower.
Yep.
But on the flip side, right, octane doesn't make horsepower.
Correct, but it helps with
That's
you
not-
can run more compression and help eliminate detonation with heat and all
But
that.
again, the ethanol piece, like I'll have $1,000 into fuel cell and fuel pumps because I've eaten up cells and destroyed parts with ethanol.
Or spend
and
the
that's-
money to get the parts that will withstand it for a little bit longer because they're not nothing is ever ethanol proof, really.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, guys. And I know it's jumping back to another story, but
For gold, we're here for
if I were to do it again, I'd be one of those guys that would do the super duty 60 front and a 14-bolt rear.
Really?
Because the mismatch pumpkin, the offset pumpkin in a
Hey, right?
what?
On the JK that causes issues, right?
So here's the thing of the whole thing, right? It's number one, anybody that's putting Super Duty axles into a JK two-door is usually stretching it.
Mhm.
As soon as you stretch it, that offset pumpkin is nowhere near your gas tank anymore. Very few people are stretching four-door JKs.
Because it's already so freaking long.
Right. So as soon as I put the Sterling in the rear, the freaking, just the drive shaft and would bang, like any little flex at all, I'm banging it off of my fuel tank.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
my junkyard tons turned into a fuel cell swap.
Yeah, as it usually goes. So, sorry, that's the 14 bolts offset to the passenger side a little bit?
It's more centered.
more centered.
The Sterling is offset the passenger.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize it was that far off. I thought the Sterling was more centered.
Nope.
I never
No,
looked
and you
enough at
notice it.
Oh, then.
And you notice it too, like,
Well, when it's hitting your
behind it,
gas
you're like,
tank,
okay.
you'll notice it.
yeah, well, right. But it's like, oh, look, spare tire, trailer hitch, pumpkin?
Yeah.
The hell?
Yeah. That's a good point.
And then
yeah.
some people will right, you'll do anything. Some people will go adjust the track bar to pull the axle
Oh,
away
no,
left.
that's not what you do.
Dude, and then run a
So just
spacer on driver.
one side?
side.
Wait,
No!
I was
do
joking.
that?
I was going to say that jokingly. That's hilarious that's actually
People
a
will
thing.
do that.
Wow.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get it, but what the fuck?
Yeah.
Wow. Now,
There's
You-
like a
you
whole
met
JK
hack-ass
people
JK.
doing XJ stuff.
Yeah, there's. I was
literally,
gonna say
yeah.
the hack-ass JK world. That's up there.
So you've mentioned now that we haven't asked if what you would do if you're going to do it again, but let's talk about your plans for the future instead. You currently own the JKU. Do you plan on this being your quote-unquote forever rig, or do you think there's plans for something else in the future?
So that's the intent. But again, my wife and I, Alyssa and I, just bought a house in Washington, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally, we have an easement in our backyard to the snowmobile trails.
Yep.
We have thousands of miles of Class 6 roads, and we've got freaking $70,000 tied up in JKs. Like, what could we do if we got rid of those JKs?
Snowmobile?
Right? What?
I said snowmobile. I think would be the
Sleds, quads. Like, we went to I've gone to the jungle a couple of times in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
What those boys are doing on freaking, side by sides on 32s are pretty fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, what is our end game? Which kind of leads to, if we were to do it all over again, right? You freaking find yourself a cat eye diesel. You find yourself a long trailer. You build yourself 2 buggies.
And then boom.
And you're off and running.
So,
for the same money or maybe less.
Yeah. Especially nowadays with people getting rid of their rigs, you could buy.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that, like, even though Mike waffled his off and one of our friends got it, which is the coolest fucking thing ever, so we get to still see
for
it every
short
day.
money.
For stupid money. But $16,000 is what he was originally selling it for. That rig, what it's capable, is well worth more than $16,000. I don't even know the amount of money he has into it, regardless. But
Not
like what
16.
you get, yeah, but like
even 32, like even if you doubled that still seems low for that.
That's
rig.
the thing that we look at, but it's such a specialized market, right? Like,
you can't get asking.
What I looked at, and again, I'm not right in the head, but what I've looked at was who's got some Dana 30, Dana 44 axles. What would it take for me to go back to stock, trade that son of a bitch in, keep all my buggy parts, and stick it under a chassis?
Yep.
I've got all the arms. I've got all the axle. I got all the lockers. I have a fuel cell. I have, I need a chassis.
Yeah.
And a motor.
Yep.
But like,
which isn't too far off though, because you could easily get. I mean, I know I mentioned it earlier, but like a wide open design chassis of some sorts, buy a donor CJ, YJ, TJ or something, and then all those parts would pretty much bolt right in. But is that
yourself, I mean, how many 5.3 LSs are out there? A bajillion?
Literally.
I love that bajillion and
4 million of them.
I love that him and I use the same adjective at the exact same time too. We both say bajillion.
But
like that really.
But those would be the things. So these are intended as our forever rigs. Mine is by far less practical than my wife's.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're literally, so again, fast forward, but going backwards in time, last year, we drove her Jeep down to Daytona.
Yep.
I think we got 16 miles to the gallon on 40s.
That's pretty good.
We had to tow
impressive.
a trailer back, a loaded 5x8 trailer, floor to ceiling, and got 13 miles to the gallon towing a trailer back.
Wow.
That's not bad.
That's really
But
good.
What people don't understand is gearing and manual locking hubs and, just go down the list of things that make it better.
I'm doing it wrong then. I think I changed the spark plug since I last checked, and it hasn't run since October. But I was getting 9 for our trip to Pennsylvania with the 4.0. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah,
but it's
my freaking
issues.
WJ with a 4.0 on 32s might get 15.
Yeah.
Like, they're dog.
My daily driver truck gets 10 driving around the city and about 6 towing. So,
what?
Yeah, my truck sucks gas. It's fucking horrible. I can't.
That is like awful.
I know
feel
your
bad
Ford's
for you.
incredible. I get it. I understand.
I mean, it's one of those weird things. Like, right, my buddy has a gas 2500 GMC.
Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic when gas is $2.50 a gallon.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sucks when gas is $5 a gallon.
Yep.
but it does everything he wants it to do. Well, except go faster than my wife's JK.
Oof. While towing a trailer or just in general?
Just in general. So they were racing down by Brockton, and she passed him because he's governed at 98. So she went blowing past them, stretched JK, doors off, top down on 40s. Deuces.
That's funny.
That's great. Yeah.
I would love for these things to be our forever Jeeps, but at some point in time, they're not, the market's crazy right now. So what do? Do you unload it when the market's hot? Yep. Who wants to pay? Her Jeep we could sell because it's normal looking. Who wants my freaking Jeep? Who wants to pay $30,000?
Somebody out west would definitely enjoy
Pump them numbers up, bucko.
Well, I know, Luke, but who's going to get if Jesse Straight can't get $30,000 for his JKU that's been for sale for a year?
Is he out on the side of the United States?
It's right here in New Hampshire.
Well, that's probably the major reason. Is if it went out west with it, you'd probably sell it within a few minutes.
Yeah,
and just people.
Well, actually, in an unrelated note, same thing. Like I lived in another part of the country for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could pick up a freaking Volvo wagon for $700. If I drove it back here, I could sell it for $7,000 because every stalker mom wanted them in the 90s.
Yeah.
Even ours, I'd take an R right now. The one with the 500 turbos. Hell yeah!
An 850R with a 5-cylinder turbo.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm in.
Really, really off-track tangent, but wasn't it an upgrade to put an HX30 on those and just let them eat with a tune?
Yeah, they were pretty much like an under-tuned 2J. Yeah, they were.
I had a buddy who went to California. He flew to California and drove it back to Massachusetts. He's that big of a Volvo guy. It was a cool car till something happened. I think it blew a head gasket or something blew on it, and I think it's fixed now. But I kind of chuckled to myself when that happened. It's like, that sucks.
Well, I mean, Boost generally removes head gaskets eventually.
Yeah. No, Volvos are kind of like Cherokees, just squished. And
yeah, exactly, with the weird front end to it.
And the Dana 30's in the back, not the front.
Wait, those had Dana 30's in the back?
Yep. You can take a Volvo.
Actually?
Yeah, you can take a Volvo. I don't know if it's a torsion locker.
It's
or
G80.
or what it is.
It's like a Gov Bomb.
Yeah, you can put one of those in the front of a Dana 30.
What? Yep. That's crazy.
Interesting.
It's so weird.
Fun fact.
Not recommended for what we do, though.
No.
If you had a rig on 33s that was, going to be street driven, it would make a lot more sense to have that in there. Yeah, but if
assuming
you're looking at rock crawling it, you're not in a good spot with that. It's just not in general, good place to be because those particular axles like to grenade quite often when you put big tires on them.
So, Dave, I know you mentioned that you guys, just bought a house and everything, and that your Jeep still needs work. But is there any major events that you're excited for this year?
Absolutely. So for us, we do Jeep Beach in Daytona because it's like spring break for Jeepers.
Mm-hmm.
There's no wheeling, there's no nothing, but it's vacation.
Yeah.
Go down for vacation, drive on the beach, enjoy some sunshine, get the hell out of New England. But after that, the things that last year, the first go around was this Wheeling for Warriors event that I unofficially, one of the club that I belong to, the Rockaholics, kind of ran it.
Mm-hmm.
So a handful of the members were very involved, and certainly the money going to a benefit. And I know I alluded to this earlier, but the Jeep community was there for me when I needed a couple of bucks. Mm-hmm. And now that we get to do things, again, mine was a cancer diagnosis. The Wheeling for Warriors is more about veteran suicide, but being available to do whatever I can, even if it's just a donation of time, makes a huge difference. So that's an event that I'm looking forward to, not only for the camaraderie of being with the people, because there'll be clearly hundreds of people out wheeling 8 or 10 different properties and then all getting back together to camp. It's such a good opportunity to introduce some new people to an event as well as connect with old friends. And then it's the big events. It's the big local events. It's the fall crawl. It's the wheeling for warriors. It's some of those things that we've done now for 5 or 6, 7 years in a row. And what I don't know, because I've really only ever wheeled in New England, is our trails change every time you go out.
Yep.
I don't know if it's the same thing when you go to Moab. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's a good point. I never
every time I wheel Field and Forest, the freaking, Boulder Dash is different. Pinball is different. Every time you go, it's different because some Yahoo went through there at full rev limiter and moved a boulder, or somebody with 43s dug a hole the size of a Volkswagen Bug.
Yep.
Wow.
So
Do
it's
those
like
people share a brain cell across the internet sometimes?
perhaps.
I think to
But-
some extent there's got to be that out west. Because I know, at least the only thing that comes to mind is is Johnson Valley, because every year they kind of have to change up the
Well, those
course
rocks
because-
move.
Yeah, those are sort of like boulder gardens almost in some places. And you dig the sand out and you remove the cactuses, and it's a whole new trail. But yeah, I think some stuff like Moab that can't change much. It's all solid rock, right?
But I think
That's
for
what
us-
I was gonna say.
I'm sure they deteriorate though over time with all the all the tires going
Just
over
stomach
and over.
down.
I mean, hey, the Grand Canyon used to be just a trickle.
Yep.
Exactly.
So over time, one day,
Yeah.
but I
In
think
4022, Cody, it'll be a
Right.
totally different trail, I'm sure.
we're super lucky up here, right? Within 5 or 6 hours, we've got every amazing trail in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard I've for 4 years I've tried to get the Metal Cloak people to come to anything at Field and Forest.
Really?
They won't understand. Like, you will not understand the trails in the Northeast. Just come and
I will say that they're awesome. Moving to Tennessee was super cool for me because you got AOP, you got Windrock, you got Morris, you got Dirty Turtle, you got everything's 2.5 hours.
right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
And
it's
2.5.
and we've covered this a little bit, and I don't want to I haven't done a ton of southeast wheeling, I guess I'll call it, but everything's more drawn out, which is nice because there's potential for a lot of property, but at the same time, the density that we have just of everything's more dense in New England, it seems.
Yeah.
It forces our properties to be more dense, which is
It also does
there's
depend on
benefits
the
to that.
property.
Yeah, I'm sure
Like,
it does.
if you're talking about AOP's 500 acres of just straight up amusement park.
And I
Morris
can't wait
Mountain-
to see that. But yeah, like geez,
I was talking
Harlan
with
was a little. I don't want to. It was good. It was just very different from what we
Yeah.
have here.
Well, that's the thing. But up here, I've only ever wheeled in the Northeast, and for me, it's a different experience every time you go out because a tenth of an inch of rain changes makes granite from sticky to ice.
Yeah. So speaking of, will we be seeing you around Labor Day at Roush?
Ooh.
It's a possibility. We just put an invite out there and we'll see what's up.
Well, you just got your invite.
Okay.
We make an actual Facebook group though. We will happily
Yeah, once-
invite you.
Once
We
the-
believe
So
That's a
that was something Alyssa and I have tried to go down there because their season is a little bit different than ours. We were going to go in February a couple of years ago, but the forecast called for like 45 and rain for the week.
Mm.
And I thought my first time there, I didn't want 45 and rain.
Yeah.
No, you want a nice sunny day. Everything's so grippy out there when it's warm
Yeah.
and not wet.
That's what
And
I've
foggy.
seen. And again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but it seems to me like the challenging trails in New England are the red trails. A black trail at some of the stuff that we do here, it's black compared to the rest of the property.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like when you go skiing, a black diamond at a 2,000 foot mountain is way different than a black diamond at a 4,000 foot mountain.
Especially if they don't groom it, and you got gnarly moguls.
Right on. And so that's the thing, like, when I'm trying to talk to people outside of New England, I'm like, oh yeah, so our moderate trails. Well, our moderate trails are their freaking double black diamond, red, don't go without body damage stuff.
Yeah.
But it's we look forward to doing more traveling. The trouble is if I can only go 65 miles an hour on the highway, I got to plan a hell of a day to get down to Roush.
That's true.
Well, that's why it gets brought up early, and we've been bringing it up with a lot of the guests that are on here. Is of the way we see it is if we throw out the invite early enough, like we're talking about Labor Day, so you guys got 6 months of notice almost for it. By the time that we get there and we filter it down, we could probably end up with a good 15 rigs out there that are going to be fairly capable, because I don't think we've talked to anyone on this podcast that wants to go and run just blues. Like, even the guys that are on 35s want to run the blues and the blacks out there. They don't want to just run the blues.
I think it'd be most of us.
Cody, you could run blacks at Roush
That's
Creek.
Exactly what I was just about to say, Grib. So you sit tight, mister. If I'm driving 5 hours to go somewhere, if I blow up on the first trail because it was fucking cool, I'm stoked, all right? I'd rather go down, run some really cool blacks, break my shit in half, drag it back onto the trailer, and then go ride passenger. I'm not going down there.
You'd rather have it stay together, if at all possible. But,
yeah, you do.
No, because I have just as much fun hanging out that I do wheeling.
Don't get me wrong. It's fine. Everybody knows, or maybe you don't, Dave, but everybody knows that I blew up first day at Harlan.
So did I.
Oh yeah, you did too. We're both in the same boat. Well, you didn't have 18 hours or whatever it was to drive down there just to blow up the first night.
No, but
I'm not gonna say it wasn't a good time. It would have been a better time if I could have dragged my Jeep through.
Hold up.
No.
I get a little bit of credit on that because I did drive all the way from Tennessee.
Oh yeah, you did a
Boston
gauntlet.
and back.
Yeah, I forgot. But that was like
I
days
do
before.
have
You
to
could
give
sleep.
Luke a little bit more credit than you, Graham, and just for that aspect.
Why? I had to drive back.
Regardless, what I was trying to get at, you guys are great. Drive all your drives. I don't give a shit. What I'm trying to get at, though, is I don't want to go somewhere to ride down a fucking dirt road.
Yeah.
I'm there to experience what that park has to offer. That's like the biggest thing.
Well, you got to get your money's worth too, especially at Roush with the
Exactly.
prices as they are. I understand why they price themselves the way they do, but if I'm spending $120 to wheel, I'm beating the shit out of my rig.
Yeah, I get that too. I don't know if it would. I can't say anything about that because last time I was at Roush, I blew up the first day, but at the absolute
But it was a
last
blast.
obstacle on the first day, and I was giving it the beans. By the way, I have to give you some credit, Dave, because you're not the average JK person.
We're letting our standards fall here. We had a Jeep truck on, and now we have you on. Gone are the days of the.
Are they falling or are they just getting better? That's the thing.
No,
you
they're
really have to
falling.
ask.
Our standards are lowering.
Well,
We're
again-
running out of XJs somehow.
Right. Like I told you one time at Harris Mountain, I was driving a trail. I told you, right? Like, best compliment I ever got. You drive that thing like it's an XJ.
Yep.
Yep.
Because the
And
reality
I'm
is,
gonna
that, like, I've thrown a lot of money at it, and it's built a certain way.
Yep.
Right? Like, if I can't go out and run some hard trails, if I can't go out and heat the tires up, what the
What's
hell
the
am I
point?
doing?
Yeah.
Yup.
Dude, I've got 10 grand into a tin can, but I have a lot of fun with that 10 grand in a tin can.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. People have spent more money on sillier hobbies.
And then, on another note about podcast standards falling, it's about to hit rock bottom. We've got a Toyota guy in the works.
Oh god.
What? Oh god. It's
No,
it's
it
done.
can't get much
We're
lower than
ending here.
Bronco though. We've already had the Ford off-roaders on.
Yeah.
Well, they don't even make parts for those
Haven't
things.
we already had a Toyota on the podcast?
Who?
Chris doesn't really count.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Barely
doesn't
a
count.
Toyota.
Oh,
It's
okay,
a
okay.
trucky. You know,
It's a
it gets-
Toyota.
The thing Toyota there is the cab. At least with the next Toyota.
Oh no, the
guy
cab's
that we're gonna
gone
have
now.
on.
Oh
yeah, you're right.
I can't wait to see where that goes.
Kind
Kinda late to start
guy we're
chopping
gonna
your whole
have on
Body
has a
up.
22 RE.
Let's go.
Okay. I
Hell
see
yeah.
a bit more Toyota there.
In that case, do you
Hold
have
on.
any questions? Sorry.
Luke just wraps it
Before
right
we
up.
go into the questions and stuff, just wanted to say, where can we find you on social media if you're putting that out there? Is that something that you
Yeah. So, again, because I'm a JK owner, I had to name my Jeep because apparently that's like the second thing you do.
Other than
First
vanity
you ask-
plates.
First, you ask, oh, yes, I have that too. So, let me get to that, Graham. Let's talk about vanity plates.
Well, we have to. This has sort of been Luke's whole thing, is he's got to name the podcast the Swole Boys or some shit, and we need to know
So that plate's
what
been
the
gone.
relevance of it is. I know, and that's why we were like, you can't name the podcast.
So,
that because
Cody,
that's
I don't
not
know if
even
you know
his
about my vanity plates, but in Massachusetts, you have to kind of come up with reasons and kind of con the DMV into doing it.
So I
So
can't
I-
get IE ass in like different lettering. I have to explain why I want that.
Yeah,
You'd
you
be like, well,
explain-
see, I actually eat ass, so
and depending upon who you get in line, they might have to actually prove it to them.
wow.
Oh my god.
So I got
Forget
swole.
licking.
So my license plate was swole,
Yeah.
right? So short for swollen, right? The thing got big.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking swole is overdone. I put in girthy, and they approved it. So if you search around my social media, you'll see some license plate that say girthy.
That's fucking hilarious.
Then when we moved to New Hampshire, so like my Jeep is Sully because it's like big and blue and looks intimidating but doesn't scare anybody like Sully the monster.
Mhm.
Well, I spelled it wrong originally. I spelled it Sully Sully
Uh-huh.
because I didn't know any better,
Yeah.
which is a good segue to Alyssa's old license plate. She got F Sully in Massachusetts, and we told the DMV it was because her grandfather, Francis Sullivan, recently passed away, and it was an homage to him.
Oh my god.
So when I moved to New Hampshire, she got a different plate that's related to hiking, and I got Sully, Sulley,
Yep.
which is how Sully the monster spells his name.
I never knew that.
But
I would-
everybody calls me Sully, and I'm like, I'm not Sully, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I went through the DMV or whatever it is up here in New Hampshire, and I looked up a plate, and I'll spell it out for you. I looked up COMPNS8.
Compensate.
They approved it.
What?
Because why else would you have a Jeep on 43s? You're clearly compensating.
That's great.
Oh, and Lisa says from the other room, can confirm. She gave that a Texas size 10-4.
Oh, well, there
That
we
is-
go.
That is fucking incredible. So your Instagram or
So
social media
Instagram is Sully the Jeep, Sulley the Jeep.
perfect.
Facebook, there's Sully the Jeep, there's Dave Linehan, the pun, and Cody, I don't know what you know of Alyssa and I, but I graduated college the year she was born.
So Dave, okay, let's
So
go.
we bought this old house, and I created a Facebook page called This Old Spouse.
I've been following
And
that.
it's me
pretty
fixing
funny.
up the house. but
That's
it's
great.
But it's like again, and if you haven't met us in person, I don't think for real, right? If you have, it was for a minute and a half.
Badlands.
Yeah.
Badlands
Oh,
once,
I
yeah.
remember Alyssa getting mad at me for getting the sunburn at Badlands. That was hilarious.
I don't remember that.
But like, we're wicked lucky. Somehow she puts up with my shit and I put up with hers.
Hey, perfect match.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
But yeah,
Cody,
so
you don't
so
remember
we're on
that?
Facebook, and again, the age thing, whatever. But like in her phone, I'm programmed in as the millennial because I'm the one that's always on social media. I'm the one that's always on Facebook. I'm the one that I got a freaking alumni email address from my college because Facebook only used to allow .edus in.
Wow.
Wow. That's incredible.
So Tom was my only friend on MySpace, I mean, although I did have a top 9. But like, this is just one of those things. Like I used to write blogs in the 90s.
It's awesome. That is
That's just
absolutely
always been
incredible.
your thing. It's the social, it's part of who you are, is the social
You're a
media
little
aspect of it.
social butterfly.
I am. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But
I got a lot to say with nothing that makes any sense.
no, you did absolutely fantastic, and I honestly wanted to say thank you very much for coming on. It's been very insightful, very eye-opening, in a whole different aspect of off-roading that we really don't get to see that often.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
don't see any of the JK
we're
tech stuff.
Exactly, we're XJ kids, and we hang out with other XJ kids. Like it worked out really great, and I seriously am very appreciative of you coming on because this has bin
I probably
absolutely
shouldn't
phenomenal.
pump your tires too much, but Alyssa calls you her XJ boys anyway.
Let's go.
Like, I want to go hang out with my XJ boys.
So, do you got any questions for us before we close out?
No,
It
I mean,
sounds like
for
we're
me,
going that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like, and it's not a simple answer, but what made you guys put this together? Like, what was the original thought? Like, what's the mission statement? Why are you doing this?
I could give a pretty good answer to this, Luke, if you wanted me. I know this is your baby, but you want me to try my best to
I'll
explain
let you
it?
take a swing at it.
So this all started out based off of Luke and Richie in their old shop. It was a thing. It was an idea that they had in their heads that they wanted to start a podcast and talk about what they were doing in the shop at the time. And it then slowly progressed to a point where really we sat on here, we'd play video games, we would drink beer and talk to one another about Cherokee stuff or just Jeeps in general. And really it was just a big excuse for us to just do that some more and actually put it out there and to get people to see people who would even enjoy it.
Our first few sorry to interject here. Our first few episodes were like totally us just like venting all of our Jeep knowledge that we didn't stuff that we'd never talk. Like, it's not like you can just go up to somebody and have a conversation about some of this stuff, right? So for us, I mean, of all of us being the nerds that we are about a lot of this stuff, it sort of started out as just a way for us to just dump all that info into something, right? And then it sort of progressed into, now we're grabbing guests on and getting their takes on a lot of, how they got into it, how, knowledge that they've had, and we've met a really, a huge handful of really cool people doing it, and it's just gotten more fun as we go.
And what blows me away is how some of the knowledge just seems not intuitive, but like there are some people that are just amazing at this.
Yep.
And I don't mean the podcast world, I mean the off-road community.
Yeah.
Like they can take tinfoil and somehow build a buggy.
And those are the people that we try to get.
And like when we were first thinking about it, I'm going to be honest, and this is never what was intended, right? It was supposed to be like 4 dudes kind of just like talking Cherokee stuff and what's going on, like, hey, who's winning KOH and stuff. And, we were just kind of like, it's a lot more fun. Sometimes it's a lot more fun to talk with these people from New England or like across the country that maybe they wouldn't be in this era or area talking about stuff, but they've got so much stuff to talk about you can have a better conversation with them than you can have just with the four of us talking about what's going on 4 little Jeeps in New England. And now I'm in Tennessee, but it's still like it kind of expanded, and we still like to do the 4 hobos and a dumpster fire episodes because those are fun to make. But it's also a lot of fun. Like, I don't know if you listen, but I'm not trying to blow smoke up Trail Trash's ass. They were hilarious to talk with. All 4 of the guys that we've talked with there. You know, I'm going to name a couple of people off real quick, but like Chris at Action Fab, Sam, Nick LeBlanc, Jeremy Downs, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but Chris Iashua is actually a hoot.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeremy Downs, Hack Bar. It's been great. Like,
the best thing that I really enjoy about it, like 100% the most, is everybody has a story to tell, and we could just offer them a platform to come on and talk and tell me about yourself. And it's awesome because we get to pick their brains on fun things that they're doing, technical knowledge on different things, or just life that they've lived, kind of like what you spoke about, where you get to share your experiences with others when they get into wheeling because you've already lived it. You get to help them beat the bullshit that you already went through. And that's something that Luke offered to me too when I first got into Cherokees. Like, he showed me, hey, don't do it this way, do it this way because it makes more sense. And we get those little pieces from each person that we speak to, or we get the adventure stories, or hearing about different tires, and allowing people to get their own opinions based off of something that we can bring to them. It's awesome.
Right. And like to take that same story, it's like when we look at my Jeep compared to Alyssa's Jeep. We haven't redone her Jeep 12 times.
Yeah.
We learned everything wrong on my Jeep.
You know, and down the road, I don't know if Graham's going to hit this stage, and I'm not saying that to be a dick to Graham, but like, he's very, very methodical about his process, so I don't see him going past maybe 2 rigs for actual wheeling rigs. I think if he builds a buggy, it's going to be like what happened when Timmy pulled his buggy out of the garage, and it's just going to be like, God damn. But I can see Cody going down the path of working on, you know, this rig, the next rig, and then the final rig, similar to what I did. And I don't know where Kish's path is going to go, because that's his to blaze, and
I don't know either.
He's got the kid now.
He has the kid now. He's already
changes dramatically how it goes.
We'll just wait for him to get big enough, and you'll get old enough that you can, you know, hopefully, if you get bigger and more swole, you're not, the kid's not gonna be able to pick you up. But if you stay skinny, you can just have him drag you around.
The main idea is to wait until that special time where Richie is big enough and competent enough to just go underneath the Jeep without having to lift it to do all the mechanical shit. And I'll just stand outside the Jeep handing him the tools. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what you need to do, boy. Daddy don't want to get in the ground.
That's the best part of 43s. Just change the oil in the driveway, crawl right under. I can sit up underneath there, I think.
You can bring a computer chair under there and do your oil change.
I gotta drive the freaking WJ up on planks to get an oil change, and freaking JK I just roll under with my office chair.
Yeah.
I had that issue where I was helping my buddy with his stock Cherokee a couple months ago.
Low. They're really low.
Oh my god. I crawled underneath the thing, and I shit you not, I got stuck underneath it. You know, he had sagged out suspension and stock tires, and I turned underneath it onto my side, and I wedged myself, and he had to come over and like kick me to get me unwedged.
Meanwhile, I got 40s and 5 inches of lift, and it's just like, I'm just going to slide under here comfortably on my back. If I want to, I can sit on the tire and do my crank position sensor just leaned over the fender with like 2 fingers.
Anyways, let's wrap this up.
Yeah,
We've had
Yeah,
a
we're
great-
getting to the part of the
here.
program where the battery's dying and we're starving.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Well,
Sounds good.
somebody end it out.
Dave, it was awesome talking to you. Keep your MTRs. Make sure you get a good batch of MTRs and just run your JKs with 37s with 2 inches of lift. Don't ask questions on the forums, or not even the forums on Facebook. We'll see you
Dude,
next time.
don't overcompensate, mate.